Hi, I'm Bill Bradley. Join me for a recent excerpt of American Voices.
Freedom. I had a dream I could buy my way to freedom. I had a dream I could buy my way to freedom. I had a dream I could buy my way to freedom.
You're listening to musician David Jassy sing his song called Freedom.
I had a dream I could buy my way to freedom. I had a dream I could buy my way to freedom.
David served 11 years of his 15-year prison sentence in San Quentin. California Governor Newsom granted David clemency a few months ago, but while David was in prison, he worked on his music from his prison cell.
Ice when I breathe in, surreal like Picasso. Sights that I'm seeing, art behind bars, but there's no museum, just tattoos with ink bleeding. Carpe diem, there's no poetic justice. Just ice. I'm praying for all of my people trapped doing life in Solano, Pelican Bay, Corinachino, Folsom, Quentin, not Tarantino.
David saw that other people in prison were interested in how he was making music. He realized how much learning about music could help them. So David worked with the prison to create a program to teach inmates how to write and produce their own music.
I had a dream I could buy my way to freedom. I had a dream I could buy my way to freedom.
They recently put out the San Quentin Mixtape Volume 1. David's here with me now to tell us about how he would use music to help people put their lives back together. In fact, studies show that people in prison who work on educating themselves and learning something new have a much lower recidivism rate. David, welcome to American Voices.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on the show.
So I want to talk to you about your music, and we just heard your song about freedom, but now you're out of prison for a few months.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what it was like that moment you walked out?
Oh, it was surreal. You know, it's a day that I've been dreaming about for so many years. It's a day that I've been meditating on for so many years. And, you know, just the feeling to walk out the prison doors was just amazing. But it happened during a very interesting time. You know, the whole world was also on a lockdown. And, you know, I'm back in my native country of Sweden now. So it was also strange to see all the changes that's happened in my country. But of course, I feel extremely blessed, and I know I'm extremely fortunate to be in a situation to be one of the few people that actually got commuted by Gavin Newsom.
How are you doing now?
Oh, I'm doing excellent. I'm living in the old city of Stockholm, Sweden, and I'm working on my album here in Swedish, actually. It's a Swedish album that I'm doing. I'm also working on an English album as well. And I've just had time to get together with my family again and just be among friends and, you know, slowly adjusting to society. But I mean, I feel extremely blessed, and it's been tremendous also to see the evolution of the San Quentin mixtape and all the media coverage that we have been blessed with.
Yeah, I'll bet. Does the world seem different 11 years later? What surprised you?
Oh, it's very different. I can only speak for Sweden because I've spent most of the time here. And I mean, it's very different. The banking system is different. There are a lot of new buildings that I've never seen, football arenas. The technology has just evolved rapidly. And it's moving on very fast, but it's the same city, but still not the same city.
Right.
And it feels kind of like Back to the Future. You know, it's very strange to be gone for so many years and then to slowly just land in a town that you know so well, but still seems so very different.
So, you know, all these years you were in prison and you were in a cell, and, you know, a lot of people today are trying to cope with staying in their home. I mean, do you have any thoughts that you could offer to them about how they can cope?
Absolutely. So it's very important to not focus on the negative. I was always trying to focus on what I was grateful for. I remember when I was in LA County Jail, I used to thank God just for the light in the cell. I used to thank God for the water. I used to be very grateful for my childhood. I used to use, you know, like I actually got it from Oprah, the gratitude list, to just write me a gratitude journal. And when I started doing that, I just started looking at all the positive things in my life. And I knew that I was in prison. I knew that I was physically trapped, but my mind was traveling places, from reading books And I used the time to educate myself and educate others. I became a teacher in English and math in prison, but I also started the music program and utilized the time so that not only me, but other people that were incarcerated could actually use this time efficiently and return to society as safe individuals. Just like you said in the introduction, studies have shown that people that have educated themselves in prison or took part in rehabilitation programs has a way lower recidivism rate. Lifers only have 1% recidivism rate, whereas people who only come in for a short period of time have a 70% recidivism rate. And the lifers have to take education and have to take self-help groups to even stand a chance when they go to board. These are men that have made very, very bad decisions in life, but they're doing everything they can to change the narrative. And they also want to help the youth, educate the youth on the dangers of a criminal lifestyle and the dangers of a prison lifestyle.
So, David, how did you end up in San Quentin?
So I came to California to work as a songwriter. And on one night when me and my girlfriend left the club, I got into an altercation at a crosswalk with another man. And we got into a physical altercation. And unfortunately, he lost his life in that altercation. And I was later on brought to trial and sentenced to second-degree murder and serving 15 years to life. So that was a huge shock for me also. I never thought in my whole life that I would ever take anybody's life. My whole thing has always been music. I didn't live a life of crime. This is something that happened at the spur of the moment when me and my girlfriend was on our way home. So I was extremely sad for the man and the man's family, and it's something that I live with till this day. I have extreme remorse for the crimes that I have committed, but I wanted to make sure that I used my time to do the best I can. There is nothing I can do to turn back the clock or bring him back to life. But what I can choose to do is to do the best of what I have now, and just make sure that I just put out good and put out light into the world.
So let's talk about the music program you started. When did you realize that other people in prison were interested in music and that maybe learning about music could help them?
I noticed that there were a lot of talent early on. There were a lot of guys rapping on the yard. They were rapping in the building. Unfortunately, a lot of the stories were glorifying the criminal lifestyle. And that never sat right with me. I felt like we're in prison. There are victims in our crime. And if anything, we should warn younger kids about this lifestyle. And I proposed the idea to the younger guys. And I said, you know what? I have a past in the music industry. I came to America to work with Britney Spears and other artists. And I do have a lot of connections in the industry. And we could actually make an album and instead warn younger kids about it. It's a rehabilitation program that benefits everybody that's participating in the program. But to me, the bigger picture was always to warn the younger kids of not even coming to prison. And for me, it was very important that all the revenue that came from the mixtape was supposed to go to victim rights organizations and other groups that help youth to stay away from crime. So
right.
I wanted to have like a win-win type project where all the revenue goes to the people who deserve it the most, but also we warning younger kids about a criminal lifestyle and also have a rehabilitation program where I can also mentor the youth and talk to them. So when they eventually return to society, they return to society more educated and more safe for society. And one thing that I always say is, 90% or even more will eventually return to society. And then we can ask ourselves, who do you want as your neighbor? Do you want somebody that participated in a rehabilitation program, or do you want somebody that were on a violent prison yard, participated in riots and stabbings and were just locked away? So I think it's extremely important as a long-term plan to really focus on rehabilitation, but even more importantly, focus on the draconian sentences that some of these men have been sentenced with, because it's way unproportional to the crimes that they have committed.
So tell me, how difficult was it to start this program? I mean, you don't really hear of starting a music program in a prison. Who heard about it, and how did you pull it off?
It was extremely difficult. It took me years to do it. When I first got to San Quentin, all I had was my guitar, and everybody told me that I cannot have a keyboard. I worked in the media center, and even in the media center, I had resistance where everybody told me that this is not a music studio. We had some guys in here that were trying to rap, and they got fired. So I had a lot of resistance, but I believed in the idea. I brought it up with administration, and they at first really didn't know what I was doing. But I slowly started, making music for a radio show. But I had a long-term plan of eventually recording music. And, I performed a lot in San Quentin. So I did a lot of shows in there. Eventually, people started knowing me as the music man. And the more I performed, the more trust I also got with the administration. They knew that every content that I had in my lyrics were never glorifying anything, but it was more uplifting because I was always trying to uplift the people inside of prison. So the more trust that I got, slowly they allowed me to at least start the program. And initially, my only idea was that I wanted the mixtape to be aired on the institutional channel, but I also wanted it to be played in like juvenile facilities and schools. That was the only initial plan. And I talked about it with the administration, and they were kind of like, yeah, let's see what happens with it. And I actually recorded more than 100 songs and had more than 50 participants in my program. So this volume 1 is a collection of some of the songs that were actually recorded. Now, since I got commuted, I made sure that, because, San Quentin was built in 1852, and before they had never had anything like this. And I wanted to make sure that this program stayed in place, even though I left it. So I am now also producing beats from Sweden that I'm sending into San Quentin. So when the COVID-19 situation is over, they can get back into the studio and keep recording the songs and keep this program going.
When the sunrise over San Quentin, I dropped onto my knees and prayed. Blessed to see another day. When the sunrise over San Quentin, I dropped onto my knees and prayed. Blessed to see another day. When the sun rises, I wake up and say a prayer. I thank God for my existence. He ain't had to let us wake up. We was living reckless, didn't care what life would take us. We was headed for destruction. I'm thankful that God saved us. I remember times I told God I'll turn my life around, but I lied every time. It's like I couldn't put that rifle down. Sitting in the cell, I'm praying for change as I'm lying down. God, if you change me, I'ma change, and I ain't lying now. Should've went to school and paid attention. Now I'm sitting in prison. Lately I've been reminiscing, wishing we was still children.
So you're following the footsteps of Johnny Cash, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And Merle Haggard. So, yeah.
Yeah, and Merle Haggard. Yeah, he was in San Quentin, too.
Yeah, he was in San Quentin. So, yes, absolutely.
Have you ever met Merle Haggard?
I have not, but I have met people that have. And I believe that he has a restaurant in Marin somewhere there close to San Quentin.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to me, this experience was life-changing because I realized the impact music has on the youth or on people in general. And there were so many people that were involved in gangs and crimes that slowly but surely stopped doing that, stopped participating in it. They started going to school. I'm now getting letters from their family members that's thanking me and saying, you have turned my son's life around. So for me, it's extremely humbling. I feel extremely blessed over what we accomplished. We didn't even think it was going to be this big. We didn't know that, celebrities would be involved. We just wanted to do something for the youth, and that's how it all started.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of stories that are really heartbreaking. There's a man called Daniel Gutierrez. His grandfather was actually in San Quentin when his 13-year-old mother was pregnant with him. And not only in San Quentin, he was in West Block, not only in West Block, but he was also on the same tier, only a few doors down. He came down to my studio when he just started rapping. And one of the lines was, now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather. And I had to stop him. I was like, wow, wait, what? Your grandfather was here too? And he told me the story about, what I just told you. And I was like, You know what? That should be the title of the song. We should definitely focus the song around that.
Ay, look, now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather. They say they ain't no hope, then why we still trying? I got tired of days to see my mother crying. I realized I living fast, I was slowly dying. Take a look at my past, no, I ain't lying. Grandfather was in prison for selling dope. While my mother pregnant with me, tell her where to hope. And she was only 13 at the time.
Who knew that baby in the stomach live a life of crime? Now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather. Just like him, I can't be there for my own daughter. But now he out and he's there, so you really changed. Miss my baby, wish he here, so I'ma do the same. And I'm on the way.
For me, I have a lot of love for these young guys because I see the innocence in their eyes and I see how they could have been excellent young scholars in a college. But they didn't have the opportunity or they didn't have the maturity to make the right decisions. There are so many different factors, but the will to change, that's what's so beautiful. I'm sure that there are people listening to this thinking, well, they committed a crime, they don't deserve a second chance, and so forth. And I fully understand that concern. But I want to stress that these are human and they will eventually parole.
Took a lot of years in prison just for me to grow. Mother used to pray to God for a miracle. She couldn't stand the life that her son chose.
There's more of my conversation with David Jassy that's coming up.
A couple of days later, they both came to my cell, and I just saw like this spark in their eyes, and they were like, you know what? We were sitting down in our cell, and we were looking at a picture of my daughter on the wall, and we decided to write a song about our daughter.
That's coming up. Stay with us.
Now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather. Now I'm in the same prison as my grandfather. Just like him, I can't be there for my own daughter. I never listened to advice I got from my mother.
We're back now on American Voices with music producer David Jassy. We're talking about the San Quentin Mixtape Volume 1.
Focus was always on the narrative of what we're talking about, because we wanted the narrative to be focused on positive things. There's not a single curse word on the whole mixtape.
Dressed in a paper suit, shackled on a gray goose, looking out the window, wishing I could cut these chains loose. You know what?
So David, how would the program work? Who would actually teach people how to do their own music?
So I basically produced all the music, and I taught them about songwriting and how to write song versus melodical math. I showed them a few chord structures, but also how to produce in Logic. That's the software that I use. But the main focus was always on the narrative of what we're talking about, because we wanted the narrative to be focused on positive things. There's not a single curse word on the whole mixtape. My whole philosophy around that is that if we're going to talk to the youth, or if we're going to talk to children, we should do it in a respectable way. You wouldn't want to have a teacher that comes into a classroom and starts cursing at the kids.
Right.
So in the same way you give that respect in school, I wanted us to give that respect in the music, but also to break away from the stigma and the stereotype that is oftentimes associated with rap music. I come from a different era of rap music where it was not that violent, and I kind of wanted to get back to that again.
So how did you learn how to write and produce your own music?
I've done it since I was a little kid. My grandmother gave me a book. She gave me a book of synonyms when I was very young because she could tell that I loved rapping and I loved writing. And she told me, this book of synonyms could really help your vocabulary and you can find other words to explain a certain story. And if you don't want to use the same word over and over, this is a great tool for you to find other words. I also brought that knowledge with me to the guys in the mixtape. But I started off early on, and I was part of a group in Sweden called the Navigators, and we had a lot of success in Sweden and in Europe, and we toured the world and made music videos and played on MTV. So after that, I started producing for other artists. I started working with Ashley Tisdale, for example. I worked with a lot of groups in Germany and England and in Sweden as well. So I've been pretty much been doing music all my life. And this was just a continuation of me just giving back with what I have been blessed to experience, but just share it with the guys there. Because when I was young, there were guys here in Sweden that took me into a youth center and basically taught me how to make music. So this was my way of giving back to everything that I have received when I was a young boy.
Right. There were some young people in your program, and they went from juvenile detention to San Quentin. What did you learn about their stories and their experience that you'd like people to know?
A lot of these guys come from poverty. A lot of these guys have generational trauma. By generational trauma, I mean their parents were incarcerated. So they grew up without parents. They grew up in neighborhoods that were drug infested, and a lot of them had to join gangs just to stay safe. There's one guy who grew up without a father, a mother, a brother, sister, or uncle. He didn't have anybody, and he was basically roaming the streets in LA alone at the age of 6, and he was stomped out. So he joined, and he joined a gang just to survive.
So, can you tell us some of the other songs on San Quentin Mixtape Volume 1? Are there any lyrics people wrote that surprised you or spoke to you?
Yeah, there's one song called One Daughter. And these two guys, it's LeJoe and Fulion. They're from Watts in California, in Los Angeles. I grew up very rough. These guys were very rough in their demeanor. And I had a very long talk with them and just told them about my plan, about the mixtape. And I thought first that it fell on deaf ears. But then a couple of days later, they both came to my cell, and I just saw like this spark in their eyes. And they were like, you know what? We were sitting down in our cell, and we were looking at a picture of my daughter on the wall. And we decided to write a song about our daughter. And I just got so excited about it that I said, because I had scheduled them like a week later, I said, you know what, let's go down right now and record it. And it's very beautiful. It's just beautiful.
One daughter, pretty little face, pretty little eyes, let me smiling all day. I be missing you kissing you, might be miles away, but I'm still with you. Got one daughter, pretty little face, pretty little eyes, let me smiling all day. I be missing you kissing you.
And you get to see what it feels like to be in their shoes and how they miss their daughters. And I think any father can relate to their stories of just imagining being away from your family.
Sure.
And what that feels like. There's another song called Break the Mold by Maserati E, where he's basically talking about that we need to come together. And I think that's especially important in a time like now, where there's so much division, not only in America, but all over the world. But he's basically encouraging people to break the mold. And that came from, he was inspired to write that after a prison riot. And he just got back into his cell and was like, this is just so ridiculous. We're fighting over stuff that is useless and pointless. And it's basically, it's coming from a guy that came to prison at the age of 17. And he's encouraging the world to basically get together and stop the division. And just let's break the mold and let's get together. Let's make the world a better place. There are so many great stories in there. And what I would love is if this could be a deeper conversation for teachers, if this is something that they can play in school and later on talk about it. And also talk to kids about why do you think this guy went to prison? And hear these stories and analyze it. Get to the depth of it all. Don't just read a newspaper saying this guy committed this or that and now, okay, let's lock him away. But let's stop there and pause. And because if we really want to solve crime, who better to ask than people that committed crime and now want to help? They could tell you what it feels like to be that young lost guy that craves for attention or whatever the situation may be. I think it's so important to not just throw away the key and lock them away, but actually sit down and listen to the stories that they have to say.
So tell us about your best friend in prison, Harold Meeks. How's he doing?
Well, last time I heard he was doing okay, but I'm worried about Harold Meeks because he's working at the hospital and he's at the front line of the people treating the guys that are infected with COVID-19. So when I left San Quentin, they had 0 cases of COVID-19. And unfortunately, CDCR made a decision to move some people from Chino, another prison in California, where some of the people that were incarcerated that were being transported had COVID-19. And last time I heard, there were more than 1,000 people in 2 weeks that got infected from that decision in San Quentin. And a few people have already died.
How many people in San Quentin?
4,400 approximately. I'm not sure about the exact number right now. It could be less, could be more.
So 25% got COVID.
From what I heard, it's almost 50% right now. But the last number I saw, that was about a week ago, was over 1,000. But that was within 2 weeks, they had 1,000 cases. So, it's extremely unfortunate.
What do you want people to know about life in prison?
That it's no joke. I hope that the youth realize that no matter what they go through and no matter how hard it is, there's always a brighter day waiting if you're willing to take the risk and go to school, go to college. There's going to be obstacles. I'm not saying it's easy. I know it's learned with, you see guys on the block where you live that had gold chains or more money and so forth. But all that glitter is not gold. And you don't want to be in prison at all. It's a very tough life. It's a very limited life. Most of your friends will likely disappear. Your girlfriends will disappear. The ones that's going to stand by your side will most likely be your family and not the members of your gang.
I was a young boy, I had nobody, so I started hanging. Stone love, it was the best love, so I started banging. Age 4, I had no hope, you left me filled with hatred. I got stumped out and I cried out, but nobody came.
That's why I strap up and I act up so they feel my pain.
No mother, no father, no brother, no sister, and not even uncle. Came from the bottom and started from nothing and made it to something.
Regular people, I want you to know that there are so many people in prison that has already been rehabilitated, not only 5 years ago. Some are rehabilitated 10, 15 years ago. There are guys in there that's serving 210 years to life for robbing a McDonald's. There are so many sentences that are so unfair that totally goes under the radar that nobody ever writes about or talks about. There's a lot of stuff going on in prison. It's a very hidden world, and it's an extreme cruel system if you really look into it. And I really hope that America can take after Europe in many ways when it comes to how Europe rehabilitates people that are incarcerated. I know it's a very different culture, but Europe used to have very, very stringent laws and harsh punishment as well, but they just learned eventually that it doesn't work. And if you want to make a safer society, you also have to make safer prisons and more rehabilitation. You have to focus on these things. Otherwise, the consequences will be bad eventually. You can only treat people bad for so long. It will eventually backfire.
Dear mama, I know I put you through a lot. Had regret breaking your heart just like my baby pops. I was moving so rapidly I couldn't stop. Got addicted to the streets the first time I heard the shot. Questions roaming through my head, what did I go wrong? I should've listened to your mom, son, stay home. I left it to the big homies, now they all gone. I know my family with me, but I still feel alone. You always told me, mama, everybody ain't my friend. They'd smile in my face, but kill me in the end. Daddy wasn't there, so I tried to be the man. Daddy wasn't there, so I tried to be the man. Dear mama, I'm making on night. Lady, I just wanna let you know, mama, I've been down a long road. It's time to rest. Dear mama, I'm making on night. Lady, I just wanna let you know, mama, I've been down a long road. It's time to rest. If I don't make it home tonight, mama, please don't cry. You did your best for me, but I had to live my life. Fascinated by the struggle, call it true tribe. We gotta live and let it die to see another life. I lost my only father figure at a young age. Life hit me kinda hard, so I felt the pain. At hard times you stay strong like my rib cage. Just know I love you when I miss you, even in my grave. You showed me love, but didn't approve of my
So,
lifestyle.
what were you doing, and what did you think when you heard the governor gave you clemency?
I was asleep in my bed, and I was actually dreaming about Sweden. And my friend, Harold Meeks, actually woke me up. And he just told me that they had called me on the podium, and I walked down and I saw Sergeant Eberly, and he was, at the time, he was playing a role, and he was acting like he was angry. And he just told me and two other guys, like, hey, you guys come with me. But then as soon as we came to the barracks, he actually started smiling at me, and he just told me, just, Mr. Jassy, you're going home, right? And I said, stop joking with me. He's like, no, just wait and see. And then I went into the barrack and I met another officer, and he picked up the phone and he dialed the number. And on the other line was another sergeant Sergeant Pacheco. And he said, Mr. Jassy, the governor took a look at your case, and he's seen what you've done with the youth and the music program. And he has decided to commute your sentence with immediate release within 5 days. and I just lost it, and tears just started coming down. I couldn't believe it. So
I
it
can
was
imagine.
it was just pictures of everything flashing in front of my eyes, you know.
Yeah.
My son, everything. Yeah. Been a long journey, man.
Yeah, but you got a long way to go. You got a lot of talent.
Thanks so much, sir. And thank you so much for having me on the show. It's really, truly an honor.
David, thank you so much. Very moving. I've been speaking with music producer David Jassy. He spearheaded Music Initiative program in San Quentin and recently put out the San Quentin Mixtape Volume 1, All the Voices of San Quentin. To learn more, visit us on our Facebook page. It's American Voices with Senator Bill Bradley.
Freedom. I had a dream I could buy my way to freedom. I had a dream I could buy my way to freedom. I had a dream I could buy my way to freedom. Yeah, I said freedom. I had a dream I could buy my way to freedom. I had a dream I could buy my way to freedom. I had a dream I could buy my way. Yeah. By my way, yeah. By my way, yeah. By my way, yeah.
Thank you for listening to American Voices here on my YouTube channel. For more interviews celebrating the goodness and creativity of the American people, click the subscribe button below.